the market is immature. We are celebrating not meeting targets. We celebrated 1 million tons of low carbon hydrogen, but 1 million tons in 92 million is nothing. Use hydrogen where it makes sense in the processes where I have no other alternative. The International Energy Agency did an analysis. What would be the impact of 100 or 200% green premium on hydrogen? What would be the impact on the end user? What's going to happen if my levelized cost of hydrogen is $7 per kilogram, for instance, for producing green ammonia? Green ammonia would have a cost premium of 200% as well. But if I use ammonia for fertilizer, fertilizers have a green premium of 140%. If I take that 140% of fertilizers and I use it, for instance, for food supply, the impact in the food industry is less than 0.5%, coming from an ammonia that has a price of $1,200 per ton. If I consider a green premium of 200% in green steel, that's a lot, actually. If I were a construction company, I would say, look, this is a lot if I'm considering the green steel itself. Now, if we consider building an airplane or building a car, more than 70% of the parts are plastic. It's not actually metal itself. It's not steel itself. Considering EVs, for instance, the impact of a 200% green premium on green hydrogen for decarbonizing steel production and manufacturing a low carbon car, it would have a cost impact of 9% on an electric vehicle. It's a green premium that people might be able to pay. Now, if you go to the other end, to the other extreme, and look at it for decarbonizing, for instance, ships, containers, let's think of a ship that it's already producing 20% less emissions because it's powered by LNG. And I still use green hydrogen for the metals of the container ship. That green premium is a lot, yes, from a steel perspective. Now, the impact on bulk transport of the smartphones, for instance, in container ships full of smartphones, it would be less than 0.5%. What I want to say is that we need to think, we've always thought of pushing a product. People don't want green hydrogen. We want it to happen. So, quoting Steve Jobs and quoting Jeff Bezos, you need to look at it from the market need. You need to look at it from what's the final problem that I'm solving for my end customer, and what's the impact that it's going to have on their pocket, and reverse engineering on how do I deliver that product to them. So again, would I be willing to pay 500% more on an electricity bill in order for it to be low carbon? Perhaps not. Would I be willing to pay 10% more, 15% more, 20% more? Most probably, yes. And I'm quoting one of the latest surveys done by the energy agencies, where most of the people are willing to pay up to 10, 15, and up to 17% green premiums in order for it to be low carbon. So we need to find a way of, perhaps through vertical integration, through JVs and partnerships with different parts of the supply chain, in order for us to not focus on how my green premium affects the other buyer of the fuel, but how can we do a vertical integration and understand how that green premium will diversify itself to production units that will end up adding to 5% to the end user.
That's actually a very good point that you make, that while the green hydrogen price itself might be 200% more, the total impact on an electric vehicle, if it is 9% based on the sort of steel content, that is a more palatable number than the 200%. That gives people a jerk, right? The shock, right?
Exactly. LNG is cheaper. If you consider an LNG Arab price around 11.50 per MMBTU rate, hydrogen would be above 32. It's almost double and triple the price of conventional fuels. That's why I believe that for power purposes, today the market is not there, but we do need to find which applications we can decarbonize. I read a very good paper a couple of months ago on producing low carbon pharmaceuticals. You power the facility with renewables and battery storage. You use recycled plastics, and you have sort of a circular economy for the plastics and all the waste. And also for the chemical synthesis, you use green molecules, low carbon molecules. The impact in pharmaceuticals, again, in those cases is less than 7% because you don't use 1 ton of hydrogen for one ibuprofen tab, for instance. And you don't use that much of a plastic for a blister. You don't use that amount of plastic for the bottle that you use for handing out the pills. So in those cases, the green premium is something that the end user could potentially afford. It's not doubling, tripling, or even quadrupling in price. Whereas in the fuels market, if I want to burn hydrogen, I have cheaper alternatives. And it all comes down to doing a market entry analysis.